Good afternoon. It's day 4 of our Fusion Leadership Bible study. This week, of course, we've been looking at David and Saul and talking about the law of the lid. So with that, we want to jump right ahead into our time today. And as you remember from the past few days, and we just reinforce this every single day, what is the law of the lid? According to John Maxwell, leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. So we've been reinforcing that principle in several different ways throughout the week. Today, our leadership thought for today is this: few leaders let others lift lids in their lives. Now, going back to yesterday, we focused on the fact that leaders have to lift lids for themselves. But the reality is, as we'll get into today, there are some lids that you can't lift on your own. You will need someone's help to lift it for you. So that's our basic direction for today. Is what about those situations where you want to lift a lid on your leadership, but you need help doing it? So with that as a background for today's lesson, I want to direct your attention this afternoon to 1 Samuel chapter 19, and I'm going to read the first 3 verses that will kind of frame our time together this afternoon. 1 Samuel 19, 1 through 3. Now Saul spoke to Jonathan his son and to all his servants that they should kill David. But Jonathan delighted greatly in David. So Jonathan told David, saying, My father Saul seeks to kill you. Therefore please be on your guard until morning, and stay in a secret place and hide. And I will go out and stand beside my father in the field where you are, and I will speak with my father about you. Then what I observe, I will tell you. So from this passage, one thing that you might have overlooked, but is really significant to where we're going today, is to note the relationship between Jonathan and Saul, because Jonathan was the son of Saul. And in just a little bit, we'll share why that is so significant to today's lesson. So by way of introduction then, from the book that we are basing our study out of, there are times when leaders face a problem or limitation that they cannot remove on their own. When some leaders hit those lids, they give up and they stop growing. That's the beginning of the end for their organization. But a few leaders, those with the courage and the humility to learn, get together with other leaders who are able to be lid lifters in their lives. That was the case with David, and the person who lifted the lid for him was none other than the son of Saul, Jonathan. And so we're going to take a little time today and look at the qualities of a lid lifter. We'll just mention them now and then get into them in just a little bit. First, lid lifters lift up others with their words. So it starts with words. Then secondly, lid lifters raise others up with their actions, which then leads to the final point, in that lid lifters give up so that others can go up. So there's a sense of using words, there's a sense of using actions, and then thirdly, giving up so that others can go up. Lifting up others with their words. One of the things that we've all heard, one of the little stories that we've all heard, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me or fail me. I think that's one of the biggest lies that's ever been told. Words have been used to either heal or to wound. But lid lifters are people who are encouragers. Lid lifters are the kind of people that when you spend time with them, you feel better about yourself. You feel better about your situation, your circumstances. So think about that word, encourage. It actually means the action of giving someone support, confidence, or hope. Some biblical examples include Jonathan, of course, and Barnabas, who was the missionary associate of Paul. Barnabas's name actually means son of encouragement, son of consolation. It's the same principle of someone who provides encouragement to another. And so Jonathan asked God to bless David as he had blessed Saul. And with that word of encouragement, Jonathan is actually speaking very powerful words over David. And so as we consider this first segment, lifting up others with their words, let me ask you this question. Can you think of someone who came alongside you and encouraged you? Someone who spoke that word into your life that inspired you to keep going when maybe you felt like giving up, that they came alongside of you and exhorted you that you can, in fact, improve. You can, in fact, go higher. You can, in fact, go further because they believed in you. And so we have been blessed, I'm sure all of us, when we have had those kind of words that have been shared with us. And so I would simply say, why don't we be that for someone else? Become someone else's lid lifter. But for now, we're focusing on bringing people to us who can lift our lids. So again, the first thing we can do to lift others up is to use our words to be encouragers. But it has to go beyond that because actions speak louder than words, don't they? And so we're going to look at a couple of examples of how Jonathan, with his actions, actually lifted up David. On one hand, Jonathan gave David his robe, his armor, his sword, his bow, and belt. Now stop and think about that for just a minute. Those items were his weapons of warfare, which he handed over to David. So what did Jonathan have left if he gave all those things to David? What statement was he making without using words? He was sharing with David that he trusted him so much, he made himself vulnerable to David. On another occasion, Jonathan informed David of Saul's intent to kill him. So here, Jonathan actually took David's side rather than his father's. He defied his father, Saul, in order to be an encouragement and to raise up David. We see more than once where Jonathan actually made a covenant with David. And in those days, making a covenant with somebody was a big deal. It wasn't something that we can say but not really mean. It was something that was taken very, very seriously. You didn't break a covenant in those days without it causing great significant problem for the covenant breaker. So in thinking about application of this point, think of a time when a leader or a friend or a coach went beyond words to taking action which promoted you and gave you a new opportunity. Can you think of such a time? Someone invested in you. Someone opened a door for you that you could not have opened yourself. I remember a time myself when I started in campus ministry. This was in 1986. I went to Lafayette, Indiana, and with the intent of starting a campus ministry at Purdue University. And I met with a local pastor there who also was the assistant superintendent for the Assemblies of God in Indiana by the name of Charles Hackett. And I remember when I met with him, Pastor Hackett not only agreed to support me in what I was doing at Purdue, but he went to bat for me, calling other pastors on my behalf, asking them and inviting them to join my support team. Really, he opened doors for me because of the position that he held that I could have never had gone through myself because I was new to the area. I had never been there before. So what a wonderful example that he was to me in terms of lifting my lid, of going to a place where I had not been before and opening doors for me that I could not have opened. Perhaps you've had someone like that in your life, in your ministry, in your service, where someone provided opportunities for you that you could not provide on your own. So we've talked about speaking words of encouragement. We've talked about taking action that kind of raises that to the next level. But we want to focus our last segment here even one step further than action. And what I'm referring to there is giving up so that others can go up. And again, we have to look at Jonathan as maybe the supreme example of this principle. Beyond providing encouraging words and supportive actions, giving up to empower others requires sacrifice. So think of Jonathan now in this equation. Because Jonathan, as Saul's eldest son, was next in line to succeed Saul as king. In other words, by natural reasoning, David would have been Jonathan's greatest threat to the throne. And you would think then that David would be hated by Jonathan, feared by Jonathan, reviled by Jonathan, certainly not befriended by Jonathan. But instead of hating him or considering him a rival, Jonathan gave up everything for his friend David. And he demonstrates that very clearly and articulately when he says to David, "Do not fear, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find you." This is when Saul was specifically looking for David in order to kill him. But then he makes this statement, "You shall be king over Israel, and I shall be next to you." Think about that. That is sacrifice. Because that position would have been Jonathan simply by being Saul's eldest son. For no other reason, it was his. But Jonathan, recognizing that God had called David, was willing to give that up in order to see God's will done. What a great example that Jonathan provides for us. And so, by way of conclusion today, Jonathan, David's lid lifter. Jonathan, whom anyone would expect to be a heavy lid on David's life, was instead determined to be his lid lifter. Without Jonathan's help, David would have never even survived, let alone making it to the throne. So here's the bottom line with our lesson today. There are some lids in life that you can't lift on your own. Sometimes, as is the case of David, a lid lifter looks for you. But at other times, you have to go out and find one. But no matter what, if you want to go to the highest level, you cannot get there alone. So that brings us to today's question for reflection. Who are the lid lifters in your life? stop and give that some thought. Ask yourself, do you have people investing in you? Do you have people praying for you? Do you have people encouraging you? Who are the people in your life who are helping you get to the next level? With that, we again thank you for your time. Tomorrow, we will take time to wrap up this week. We will provide some application points, make it real practical, and that's the nature of Friday. And then we'll also share tomorrow some scriptures that will be background for our study of Joshua next week and the law of influence. So that's just a little commercial of what's coming next week. And we'll provide some background scriptures for you tomorrow to cover that. But again, for today, who are the lid lifters in your life? We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And remember, tomorrow is at 1:30 on Friday, not 3:30. We'll be with you 2 hours early, and look forward to spending time together tomorrow at 1:30. God bless you all.